After a really tough loss to England, Pakistan's World Cup hopes are hanging by a thread. So how on earth did a match they should have won just slip away? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty passionate breakdown of that game. We'll look at the tactical mistakes, the fan frustration, and the very, very slim path that's still left to the semifinals. And right off the bat, the analysis we're exploring does not pull any punches. This quote really sets the tone. The central argument here is that this loss wasn't just bad luck, it was a direct result of terrible leadership. That's a huge accusation, so let's see how the source actually backs it up. The source flat out calls this loss to England a shameful defeat. And for the fans, you have to understand, this wasn't just another game. It felt like a massive blow to the team's entire World Cup campaign, especially when you consider how the match was going. So, what was the situation? Well, Pakistan put 164 on the board. In a T20 game, that's not a monster score, but you know what? It's absolutely a solid, defendable total. This was a score from which they should have been able to control the game and get the win. And that right there is the key. The real frustration here isn't just about losing. It's about losing a match that was firmly in Pakistan's grasp. The team had done the hard work to put themselves in a position to win, and then, according to this analysis, they just let it all fall apart. That's the real heartbreak here. So that leads us to the big question, right? If the match was so winnable, who's responsible for the loss? The analysis we're digging into points the finger in one very specific direction, and it all comes down to a series of captaincy decisions that completely changed the game. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. Where did the wheels fall off? The argument is that it wasn't a bunch of small mistakes, but one single, massive tactical blunder that basically became the point of no return. And the focus lands right here, the middle overs of England's chase. Pakistan's bowlers had started strong, and this was the moment, the perfect time to crank up the pressure and really break the back of England's batting lineup. But instead, the pressure just vanished. This timeline really shows you the moment everything changed. Look at the 8th over. Usman Tariq, their main spinner, their supposed trump card, comes on and boom, gets a wicket with his very first ball. He's on fire. The obvious move is to keep him going, right? Nope, he gets taken off. For the next 3 overs, the other bowlers get hit around, England gets comfortable, and by the time Tariq finally comes back in the 12th over, the game has completely shifted. The momentum is gone. And this just spells it out perfectly. On the left, you've got what actually happened. The captain took off his most dangerous bowler right when he was on a roll. This gave England his new batsman, Harry Brook, time to get his eye in and take control. And on the right, you have what the source says was just common sense cricket. Keep your best weapon in the attack, press the advantage, and finish the job. But the thing is, the analysis argues this wasn't just a one-off mistake. It's seen as a symptom of a much bigger issue. The criticism points to ongoing favoritism, not using the best bowlers together, and a history of bad decisions in big games, like in the recent Asia Cup. Okay, so after all that doom and gloom, you're probably thinking it's all over for Pakistan. But here's where the story takes a little turn. Despite this awful loss and all the criticism, their World Cup dream isn't technically dead yet. There is still a path forward, even if it's a really narrow one. Believe it or not, there is still a chance. Now, it's complicated and it definitely depends on other teams, but the source lays out 2 possible scenarios that could, just maybe, see Pakistan get into the semifinals. All right, so the first path is the simple one. Step 1, Pakistan has to beat Sri Lanka in their last group match. That is non-negotiable. Step 2, they need New Zealand to lose both of their final 2 games. If those 2 things happen, Pakistan is through. Simple as that. But here's where it gets messy. It's pretty likely that New Zealand will win at least one of their last 2 games. So, what happens then? Well, that's when we have to pull out the calculators and talk about something called net run rate. So this whole thing might come down to net run rate, or NRR. If you're not familiar, it's basically the main tiebreaker in cricket tournaments. Think of it like goal difference in football. It's a measure of how quickly you score your runs versus how quickly you let the other team score theirs. You want a high, positive NRR. So here it is, the second, much more complicated scenario. If Pakistan beats Sri Lanka and New Zealand only wins one of their games, both teams end up tied on points. And at that point, it all comes down to that tiebreaker. Who has the better net run rate? This means Pakistan doesn't just need to win. They need to win by a huge margin. So, with their fate now partly in the hands of other teams,
The analysis zooms back out to the bigger picture. Forget this tournament for a second. What needs to change to make sure these kinds of defeats don't keep happening?
And again, the language is just incredibly powerful. This quote really captures the raw emotion, this desperate call for a real fundamental change. It's a plea to completely overhaul a system that the source believes is failing Pakistan cricket. And here are the specific things being demanded. Number 1, a new T20 captain. Number 2, an end to what's called favoritism, which means dropping senior players who aren't performing. 3, a complete shakeup of the team management. And finally, the big one, build a team based purely on who is performing the best, not on who has the biggest name. And so we're left with this final, really provocative question from the source material. And it's a question that's about so much more than just one loss match. It's about the entire future of Pakistan cricket. And it leaves fans wondering, will the big changes they're screaming for ever actually happen?